David here with figbootonpens. First of all, I wanted to apologize for not posting a review last week. I did record a review, but it's something for a couple weeks from now. Last week was rather hectic for me. I was traveling to both San Francisco and San Diego to visit some family and was preparing for that trip, and that ate up a good chunk of my time that I would have normally spent on a review. I actually recorded part of one, but just kind of felt rushed and I really wasn't happy with the quality. So I decided to take the week off rather than putting something out that I really wasn't proud of. I felt a little bad because looking back, I had posted at least one review for 70 straight weeks. So now that streak is over, but a new one begins. While I was in San Francisco, I had a chance to meet up with a few folks from the local pen club. They call it the Pen Posse. It was fun to get together for a little while and talk pens. Okay, today I have a pen from you from the brand Cross. What I'm going to do is go over a little history of the Cross brand, talk about some of the parts and features of this pen, discuss what I care for and what I don't care for about it, show some measurements, some size comparisons, and then provide a writing sample. The AT Cross Company is an American company founded back in 1846 in Providence, Rhode Island by a man by the name of Richard Cross, who eventually passed it on to his son Alonzo T. Cross, which is where the AT comes from. Originally, they manufactured gold and silver casings for pencils. Then they began producing early mechanical pencils as well as stylographic pens. A stylographic pen isn't a fountain pen. It's a pen which kind of has a writing top consisted of a metal tube with a fine wire inside which kind of regulates the ink flow. The Cross Townsend model has been very popular over the years. At our pen club a while back, we had a gentleman do a presentation on Townsends, and he shared his collection with us. It's one of the largest and most complete collections of Townsends in the world, and it was very interesting to see. I personally find the Townsend to be a bit thin for my tastes, but they do have some very cool-looking Star Wars themes pens, which look really nice, but in my opinion are extremely overpriced at around $550. Since the 1970s, Cross has been the official supplier of pens to the White House. Their pens are used to sign legislation. American presidents have used Cross ballpoint pens, mainly their Townsend and Century 2 models. The interesting thing is that the pens are given out as souvenirs to folks who have had a significant role in the creation of that legislation. Sometimes that might even be like a dozen people. So the president has a dozen pens to sign with. Here's a picture of President Obama signing a bill. You can see the tray of pens next to him. What the president does is break up their signature in, a dozen parts or so in order to use each pen on the signature. I tried doing that and my signature looked terrible. It must take some practice to get used to breaking up your signature like that. Take a look at the signature of President Obama from a bill he signed, and you can especially see around his O where he broke up the signature in order to use multiple pens. Personally, that would bug me. If I was signing a historic piece of legislation, I would want my signature to look really nice. This would be me. I'd sign some real important law and be like, nah, I don't like that signature. Do you have another copy of this thing that I can sign better? I could do better. John Hancock's signature would not look as grand on the Declaration of Independence if he had to break it up using multiple quills in order to hand a bunch out to other revolutionaries. So I was contacted by Cross recently and they asked if I would care to review one of their pens, and I said sure. I haven't reviewed a Cross pen previously on my channel, so I thought it would be something a little bit different. So the pen we will look at today was provided to me at no cost in exchange for an honest review. Now, I'll admit that previously I haven't given too much consideration to Cross pens. For most of their history, Cross has produced pens that kind of generally live in the mid-range market rather than the luxury end of the market. I do own one. It's called a Cross Bailey. It was one of the very first pens I owned. Back when I had no idea what I was doing in regarding to pens. I was thinking about buying a new one, so I went to a big box office supply store because in my mind, that's where you went and bought office supplies. Little did I know. They had one single fountain pen in the entire store, which was a Cross Bailey for around $20 or so. And I bought it, and I just really wasn't that impressed. Even with my limited knowledge at the time, I was kind of quickly able to assess that I didn't particularly care for the Bailey. The one I bought just never quite wrote that well, and the nib felt a little odd and a bit scratchy, so my first experience with Cross fountain pens was not necessarily positive. So when Cross sent me this pen, while I was curious to see what they would send, I had limited expectations. Okay, that was a lot of history and backstory. Let's actually get around to looking at a pen. The pen Cross sent me is the Peerless 125, which is their flagship model. And first of all, with it, they included this little box. Inside here is a little acrylic pen stand, which is nice. I've actually been looking for a clear acrylic stand like this to use while taking pictures. Now, I'm not 100% certain this is included with every Peerless 125, but I have seen pictures of some of their boxes which actually have it included. So if you buy one, you may or may not include, or may or may not get this little stand. I was actually looking to pick up a couple of stands like that in different sizes, but I really have the hardest time actually finding places that sell them. If you happen to know of somewhere that sells those little stands, leave me a note in the comments below. Now, the pen itself arrived in this box. The sleeve slides off to reveal this really sharp-looking box, which features their lion head logo, which is an early Cross Company trademark. Inside the box is a little trifold marketing piece, as well as a kind of a standard use and care guide. On the inside of the box, I kind of like the contrast between the black and the gold on the inside of the box. It just looks nice, as well as kind of the dual colors on the box itself. And then we have the pen. This is the Cross Peerless 125. The Peerless 125 was launched back in 2014 to celebrate the 125th anniversary of Cross. This pen is a decent size. It's a large pen. I really do like the size and the weight a great deal. The overall shape of the Peerless is really unique as well, which I appreciate. It's made of a high quality resin with a high gloss black lacquer finish, and all the trim is platinum plated. There's a good deal of metal trim on the exterior as well as the interior, which help give this pen a bit of heft. It's not a light pen by any means. Let's actually start by looking at the finial. At the very top of the pen, there is a faceted Swarovski crystal, which is a cut and faceted lead glass. Now, I'm not typically a fan of gems and crystals and things like that, but I do find that this black crystal is a bit on the subtle side. Well, as subtle as a big crystal in the end of a pen can be, but I think it complements the pen well. I do like that the crystal is kind of inset into the finial, and so it's not visible while looking at the pen in profile. The reflective platinum trim kind of creates some interesting reflection in the crystal facets as well. The downside of the inset is that there's kind of a little area that will have a tendency to gather dirt and dust, and that can just be a little difficult to clean. But, I really only noticed that when I was looking at it through my microscope. From the naked eye, you really didn't notice anything. The finial has a very small trough filled with black lacquer, and it contains a serial number as well. I really like the unique shape of the cap. It slants up rather steeply and then is perfectly straight. The rounded end of the cap has some platinum trim, which actually creates a really nice smooth step down to the transition to the main band, which is actually on the barrel. And that band actually says Cross, Peerless, and 125. The barrel is straight and then tapers down to a rather long metallic end piece, which has a black lacquer trough to match the one on the finial. And at the end of the barrel, it's just slightly rounded. We have the clip, which is very functional, but has a bit of a unique shape, which gives it a look almost like the clip has been bent. But it works great, though, with both thin and thick material. On the clip itself, in raised lettering, it says Cross, and that's framed by black lacquer. The cap screws off. Now, it does require a full 2 1/4 turns to remove the cap, which seems like a bit much, but I believe that this is the byproduct of only having a single thread here on the barrel. Now, by having a single thread, the cap orientation will always stay the same when it is capped. And what this means is, what you see here is that the clip orients to the middle of the word Peerless on the band. And I really appreciate little design details like that. It bugs me when things are out of alignment or when alignment can change on a pen. So a little attention to detail like that is a big plus in my book. When you remove the cap, you get a good look at what I feel to be the most surprising aspect of the Peerless. It is this 18K gold sailor nib. Now, you heard that right. For the Peerless 125, Cross uses nibs and feeds manufactured by Sailor. Sailor makes some of my favorite nibs. I really like the stamping on this nib. It's just crisp and clean, and I think the nib creep looks pretty cool here as well. And then here's a look at the plastic Sailor feed. Since this is a Japanese nib, I do find that this medium performs like other Japanese mediums, which are more like Western fines. I really love the pointed precision of Sailor nibs, and they have just the right amount of what I call good feedback. I also like that this is a decent sized nib. It's kind of similar to a number 6 nib, so I like the size of it as well. I just really like the performance of this nib as well. At the end of the section, there is a raised ring, and then the section angles up to the aforementioned cap threads. And while the thread is metal, I really don't find it to be sharp. The cap does snap to post, but it's really a soft snap, if that makes sense. But I do find that having it posted really significantly throws off the balance of the pen, so I really wouldn't recommend it. In addition, it does take a bit of force to unpost the cap. Unposted, the Peerless 125 is plenty long enough, and it has really a decent weight to it, and does feel very comfortable in the hand. So, after spending a good deal of time with the Cross Peerless, has my opinion been raised of their brand overall? I'd say it most certainly has. I really enjoy this pen. There is just a lot to like about it. I really like the unique look. I lean towards larger pens, so the size and weight, then on top of that is nice. And then on top of that, you have a Sailor nib, which performs fantastic, as we'll see in the writing sample. You take that all into consideration, and it makes the Peerless 125 a very nice pen, in my opinion. Now, this pen is not inexpensive. I've seen it in retail in the $475 to $520 range, which is significant. While I feel that some of the other Cross models in that price range are a bit overpriced for what they bring to the table, I really don't get that same feeling from the Peerless 125. Yes, $475 is a lot to pay for a pen, and there are some amazing options at that price point. But I feel that the Peerless brings enough to the table to justify that price. Would I like it more if it was $100 less? Of course. But while it's on the high end of what I feel the value of this pen is, I don't really feel that it's absorbent, especially for a pen that I really enjoy using. So I wanted to thank Cross for providing me this pen to review. It was a very pleasant surprise. It's a pen that I really wasn't familiar with and had really never considered. But in the end, the Peerless 125 will have a well-deserved spot in my rotation. It's a lot of fun to use, and I enjoy it a great deal. It's a great pen, and I was impressed. So here we go, and now it's time for some measurements, some size comparisons, and then the aforementioned writing sample. Here we go with some size comparisons for the Cross Peerless 125. Now, to begin with, I failed to mention this during the review, but the Peerless 125 is a cartridge converter pen. It does come with a cross converter, as well as a couple proprietary cross ink cartridges. And like I said, they do use a proprietary system, so if you could use the converter with any ink you want, but if you need cartridges, then you need to get one of theirs. So, in regard to some size comparisons, in regard to some other flagship pens, this is what it looks like next to a Montblanc 149. Then here it is with a Pilot Custom 845. And then here it is with a Pelican M1000. And then in regard to three Viscontis, this is what it looks like next to a Visconti Rembrandt. And then I have two new pens that were my tax return pens that I purchased this year, and we'll definitely be looking at more of these later. But one is a Visconti Opera Crystal, which is a clear demonstrator there. And then the next one is a Visconti Opera Desert Springs. And I just really like the orange and whites and blues in the materials here. I just think that those look pretty sharp. We'll take a look at more of those later. There'll be reviews on those coming up. So, here we have the Cross Peerless 125. Now this is a medium 18 karat nib, and the ink that we're using is Cross Violet. This is what the ink looks like. It's actually a pretty nice purple. My most favorite purple recently is the Lamy Dark Lilac. But I will say that the Cross Violet is pretty solid in its own right. It's a little lighter, and then here it is in regard to like a J. Herbin Violet, where you can see it's much darker or much lighter. The J. Herbin is lighter, but I will say that I do like this Cross Violet, and right now I'd have to say my two favorite purples are the Lamy Dark Lilac and the Cross Violet. I like it a lot. It actually comes in this bottle, which is very nice. It's a decent size and decently deep enough so that you can get your pen in there. That I hate the real shallow bottles that are tough to get the nib in there, but this one is plenty deep enough. So this is an ink that is very much worth picking up as well. So here we go in regard to a writing sample. I mentioned this in the review, but this is a Sailor nib. I really like this nib. I love Sailor nibs. They just have a precision and sharpness to them that I really like. There is a little bit of feedback that I would call good feedback that just feels really pleasant. Sailor just makes some of my favorite nibs. That you can get a little bit of line variation out of here, and even though this is an American pen, this is a medium, and it's going to pretty much write like a Japanese medium as opposed to a Western medium. In regard to reverse writing, it does write. The ink flow isn't the greatest. In regard to just the standard ink flow, it's decent. I wouldn't necessarily call it the wettest pen, so that I think that they say that this ink is a little bit on the fast drying side as well. So that could be a reason for it not being that wet. And then in regard to some fast writing, this nib has no problems in keeping up whatsoever. So I wanted to thank Cross for providing this pen as well as the ink for review. I greatly appreciate it. So here we have the Cross Peerless 125. It's a pen that really surprised me and that I really enjoyed using and will enjoy using for quite some time. It's one that like I had mentioned before, I really hadn't considered that much, but it really surprised me, and that I was impressed by the looks and the feel and the performance. So it's something definitely worth checking out. So thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you later.